I just interviewed a guy who made over $500,000 teaching AI prompts.
I was making really good six figures at this job. People, including my wife, would be upset with me, but I could just see how you could easily 3x your income by removing that ceiling.
He didn't start with a huge audience or have a flashy startup. He started with a single tweet that tanked. And then one day he fed his entire writing system into ChatGPT and the results changed his life.
It did 2 hours worth of work in 6 seconds. I did a hard pivot into the AI version of this same product.
Rob went from a full-time 9-to-5 to quitting his job and replacing his income in building a one-man solopreneur business that runs entirely on AI. The result, $500,000 in revenue in just 1 year. In this video, Rob will break down exactly how to build a one-person AI-powered business without hiring a team, the secret to writing prompts that sound like a $10,000 strategist, and specific onboarding systems and AI prompts that he uses or recommends for you to use in your business. Let's dive in. Rob, you're one of the leading experts in AI and prompting. You've spent thousands of hours mastering it. For someone watching this right now, what do you think that they could expect to take away from this conversation?
We're going to talk about how I made $500,000 in my first year, get some prompting, some AI knowledge downloaded from my brain into yours. I think it's going to be a good conversation.
For anybody watching this, do you think it's realistic for them to watch this interview and then use AI automations to make their first 1K a month?
I think a lot of influencers like to push that narrative. I don't know if it's actually true. It's not the AI that makes you the money. It's the underlying business skill, the underlying problem that you're solving.
That's something you discovered for yourself. You had a full-time job. You were able to solve a valuable problem, quit that job. Can you walk through what you were doing and how you did that?
2022, I was working at this company called Maven, which is a cohort-based course platform. And my job specifically was to work with really high-touch sort of VIP course creators and help them not have to work as hard to run their courses on Maven. I worked with guys like Sahil Bloom, Sean Puri. What I realized working with these big names was that creating a course or creating an info product wasn't as hard as I thought it was. And so that gave me this bug. I almost became obsessed with it. I was I gotta learn this. I gotta do this. This is the escape hatch that I've been looking for. I was making really good six figures at this job. People, including my wife, would be upset with me, based on the salary that I left to try and go out on my own. But I could just see how you could easily 3x your income by removing that ceiling from what you were making. And so in that September, I had an opportunity. I sort of saw, well, I've got this amount of money. I can go for this amount of months. If I don't make anything, then I can go get another job. But I think I could do this. I think I could bet on myself. And that's when I kind of jumped out and walked away from Maven and started to create my first course. And that went well. Then I hit a home run a few months later. My trajectory completely changed.
You started pretty much from scratch. Your Twitter following, how did you grow that?
In May, I started with a brand new account, 0 followers. In the first 41 days, got to 10K, which was just insane growth. And did that by going viral a couple of times. And just actually one of the challenges I did is I wrote a Twitter thread every single day for a month, and tons of hours on top of my day job, every morning, every night, working on my content. I called my first course 0 to 10K, and I offered to teach people all my audience building techniques and basically how I was one of the fastest growing business accounts on Twitter that year. I got to 50K by month 6.
But back to you framing this experiment to quit your full-time job. What was the rest of your approach there?
I basically gave myself 3 months. And I'm can you replace your entire income in 3 months? For month 1, I wanted to create a course. I was going to pre-sell the course. That way I knew in advance kind of how much money I was going to make. I ended up making 34K from that cohort. My very first thing that I did after I left my job, it was more in that month than my salary. A 30K month is awesome. And so that kind of bought me a little bit of time. And I kind of looked at it almost I had a rolling window of, I have this much and now I've made 34K on top, but I've also spent this much on rent and so forth. So I was building my war chest to keep betting on myself, basically.
And so what was that first product or offer that you sold that really worked?
Yeah, so it was a cohort-based course called 0 to 10K. It was all about audience building on what was called Twitter at the time, just like all the frameworks that I used in terms of not just like creating content, but thinking about positioning your brand, your profile, your banner, like who are you as a creator, kind of walking people through those first steps into kind of identifying their niche, what I call the content tilt, like what makes you if you're writing about the same thing as everybody else. And then we got into a bunch of stuff about kind of writing systems. And that actually gave me the idea for what was going to be my second course, which was going to be a system for creating content. Yeah, it was sort of based on the success of, like, we talked about it a little bit in 0 to 10K, and people wanted more of that. And they're like, how'd you write a thread every day for 30 days, type stuff.
You're uniquely qualified to have the business acumen to go after some of these bigger problems and then package it in a way in something like a course or consulting or your community to help a lot of people. I'm curious, what was your most successful year or offering?
The most successful year, it was what happened right after that. It was the writing system that I put together. And the reason that it was the most successful was because of ChatGPT. Just for fun, like as a test, I decided to put like a big chunk of my writing system into ChatGPT. What it did was it did 2 hours worth of work in 6 seconds. My stomach seized up and I felt like I was going to throw up for a second, because I was like, holy, I cannot believe that this is what it is. What ended up happening was I did like a hard pivot into the AI version of this same product, releasing the pre-sale, opening that up on Christmas Eve. Like, I think on my tax return from the next year, it was $670K.
You're an expert in prompting. You've spent thousands of hours doing this, and you've also coached not only founders, entrepreneurs, many people through your courses and consulting. What do you see people, like, where do you see most people going wrong, and what specifically should they do instead?
Prompting, it all comes down to inputs and outputs. It's like your words go through the AI, which then predicts what words come out the other side. If you have a vision for what you want to come out and you communicate that well in your input, like, you can often get a better result. So the first thing that people kind of need to think about is, how do you convey that vision of what you want to the AI? So not just like, I want you to create a LinkedIn post for me. In that case, you're leaving the entire vision up to the AI. But if you say, here's the structure for my LinkedIn post, it's going to be a scroll stopping hook, then a benefit to like why they want to read the post, then the main idea, then why it works, then an example, then a call to action. Even just giving it some kind of information like that, where I call this output sketching. You don't necessarily know what the full piece of content is going to look like, but you have this vision, you put that in there, all of a sudden the AI is going to like tailor the output to this sketch that you've given. And it's just going to be like so much above average. With a problem with prompting in general is that these are word prediction machines. Like a large language model at its core is a word prediction machine. And it's trying to predict the word that it thinks comes next, and then the next word and the next word and the next word. That means that everything that it puts out is predictable. So much of it then kind of converges on average. And what we need to do to break it free of that is give it something like an output sketch. And that allows it to kind of like, well, it goes, okay, well, this boring LinkedIn post isn't going to work. I need to like fill these things in, and you get further. So like, that's like maybe one of the big ones. The second tip, I got two. The way that large language models work is like, it comes down to this concept called attention. Like the seminal paper that kind of set off this entire revolution was called Attention is All You Need. And basically the language model it has to figure out what to pay attention to in the words that you give it. And some of these words, I call them high gravity words, like have more of an effect on the attention, and some of them have less. And so if you want to influence a prompt, you basically have two ways to go. You can either add a few more words, but they're high gravity, like high meaning words that really influence things. So if I say, let's say my original prompt is, help me create an offer. Let's add a high gravity word. Help me create an offer using methods of Alex Hormozi. Alex Hormozi is like a high gravity concept that brings with it like all this stuff. So I don't necessarily need to write a mega prompt if I'm evoking Hormozi.
One of the exercises I've done recently is I just have a Google Doc. I call it Mitchell AI Toolkit, and I just have fed it like background. I have a tab for key influences of my favorite writers and thinkers, my favorite books, people, and then writing frameworks, high ticket coaching, different AI frameworks that I've found, and then a handful of business frameworks like Hormozi's $100 million offers framework. Like, what would be the key things that you would recommend everyone have just offhand to be able to upload into their AI prompts to make it better?
Yeah, and that sounds awesome. Although I want to warn you, you may have too much gravity in that prompt. Like there may be too many big names, too many frameworks. And when you have too much, it sort of averages out again. People like you and me and like people in our industry, you should have go-to names for the kinds of skill sets or tasks that you need. If you're doing copywriting, like you should know Joe Sugarman, and you should throw Joe Sugarman or Joseph Sugarman, if you want to call him Joseph. It just sounds weird to me, in your prompt. And just by evoking like a legendary copywriter, you're going to get that much more. So like have those names, the Hormozis, the Sugarmans, the whoever it is, who are inspiring to you and who are also well known enough in the AI that you can use them as a shortcut to influence things. The other thing is like, it doesn't just have to be names. It can be like a discipline or a field of study or something. So like one of my favorite ones is buyer psychology. You know, you're an expert in buyer psychology. Help me out with this. It's got the word psychology in it, which is already strong. So you start to like find these almost like magic phrases. It just comes in handy in like every other prompt. So like start kind of creating that list of things that you always fall back on.
So you've written a lot of content, first on Twitter, now on LinkedIn, and you really see what works best. How do you think of growing on socials?
Right. So like when it comes to social, there's basically two algorithms in play. There's the computer algorithm and there's the human algorithm, and both are essential factors. So like with the computer stuff, you're basically playing to whatever is trending or however that platform is operating. And you kind of see these patterns of like what works and what doesn't. For example, like LinkedIn's pushing video right now. If you want more impressions, think about doing video, right? It's like it's stuff like that. But then on the human side, you got to remember that the metrics that all of these algorithms are optimizing for are human engagement metrics. They want time on platform. They want an engagement. They want people to come back, to stick around, like all that stuff. And so you're thinking about what enables them to succeed at their goals. And then how do I like treat humans with my content in a way that makes them want to spend time with it?
I guess more tactically, what do you see working right now? If you were to start your audience building journey from scratch, which platform would you choose, and what would be your strategy in terms of what you'd start to test?
There's a universal strategy that I've seen with every platform. So like, let's start there, which is all these algorithms, they want to like compartmentalize you into certain categories. Twitter or X, they're called micro communities by some people. But basically the platform's going to try and figure out like, who are you? What kind of content do you create? And like, which of these, let's say there's 1,000 different buckets that they could put you in. Where do I put you? So whether you're creating entrepreneurial content on YouTube or you're posting, I don't know, some coaching content or something on LinkedIn, it's like you want to think about almost like an SEO. How do I train the algorithm to know who I am and what categories I belong in? And you can almost sketch this out if you're thinking about your brand in terms of like pillars or like, like a lot of people will do that. Make sure that you are going to get bucketed in the right place. So like if I was starting on YouTube today, I would think, let me create, and I don't know if like these videos are going to get views necessarily, but let me create some videos that are going to like train YouTube who I am as a creator. And so like for me, it would probably be some things about prompting, some things about business. And I would start to think about like, what are the keywords? What are the themes? Like, what are the different elements that need to be there to train the algorithm?
Just to get like really tactical, maybe we could walk through an example that would be relevant to a lot of people. Let's say it's like I have a friend who runs a ghostwriting agency. He wants to maybe use AI more for each of his clients to write on LinkedIn, and also wants to have a better onboarding process to really associate his value with the client's value and to understand what success looks like. And this whole idea of an onboarding process, several different type of marketing agency owners, freelancers, client service individuals all have some sort of onboarding with their clients. And it's a really tricky thing. How do you get the most amount of information, but make it easy? How do you set expectations? And so I think a lot of people would get value out of better onboarding. I'm curious how you would set up both of those things, the onboarding as well as some of the content generation.
In the sales process, you probably had a discovery call or a triage call or something where the person talked at least to some degree about what their main challenges are, what the transformation was that you could offer them, something like that, right? And that's the reason that they bought in. So you've got that transcript of that meeting, or that sell by chat, or however you did it, that email. You've also got the potential for like a kickoff call, or like something like that, where you go a little bit deeper on some of these things. And so you could think about that as like a second layer. So what I'm thinking is, first, like figure out what are your inputs, like what are those personalizable data sets. Then second, think about like what are the touch points that you want for your onboarding. Right after somebody buys, I want to send them a quick, hey, this is going to be awesome, like let's go kind of email. So you can set that up, but if you know what happened on the discovery call, you can run it through a little personalizer. Like, hey, super excited to help you fix this challenge. We talked about this, and we're gonna remove that and replace it with this. Like, looking forward, let's go. So like very easy, and prompting your way through that. This is another one where we can do output sketching. So like you give the AI, in this case of like you give it kind of an example with only placeholders. Like basically the placeholders are what I just said. You could literally put brackets and be like, super excited to bracket, help you solve your key challenge, close bracket. Can't wait to open bracket, get you your desired outcome, close bracket. Like looking forward to it. You give the AI something like that, and then you paste in the meeting transcript, and boom, you've got your post-sale email. If you've got a CRM or something, you could even automate that, like as long as you can point it at the right note or meeting information or something like that.
Right. So have a set of key questions or information you want to gather that you'll put into AI, do that in a kickoff call, put that, either use that in a doc combined with your operating guide. And then how would you set up like any specific tools or resources you'd recommend for setting up this agent or workflow?
Yeah. So like, and by the way, those questions you can ask AI to help you figure out what they should be.
Sure.
So if you don't know what to do on your call, like, here's my program, like what should I be asking to make this right? It'll tell you. In terms of tools, okay, so if you are doing a form, my favorite form is tally.so. Their free plan's really awesome. And they integrate like nicely with no-code automation and stuff. For automations, for workflows, I like make.com. A lot of people like N8N. Personally, I find Make like, and part of it is like, it's what I've always used for years. So like, I'm super comfortable there. Tally, Make, Google Docs. You don't have to get fancy with this stuff. You get so obsessed with like, what's the tool? It's like the tool is like a Google Doc or a Notion doc or something. Like the tool is the fact that they wrote their answers down on a piece of paper. Like it doesn't matter like what you're using. It more matters that you ask them to do that in the first place and that you have an action that you're going to take on top of it.
Before we wrap up, Rob, this has been amazing. You've given me so many ideas. I think you've added tons of value to the audience and viewers. When you're thinking through just the overall opportunities that exist today, kind of that going back from scratch, if you were to start, like how would you approach business ideas to ramp up to say 1K MRR and find valuable problems to solve? Like what would you start doing today with no audience?
Well, I'll tell you the big thing that I did wrong, which is like I did too many things. I have too many products. I've got too much going on. It's very hard for people to like come to my website or come to my account. It used to be really hard for them to know, like, what do I even buy from you? Because I was trying too much stuff. I think that what you need to do is you experiment with a few ways or a way of making money. And if it makes money, you need to like focus on making that work better for you. Create a value ladder around it. Maybe you have a few products, but that you want them to be like obvious and aligned. And the thing that people know you for, and the thing that people know that if they want to spend money with you, like this is how you spend it and this is what you get. So like there's a certain simplicity to it that needs to exist. Like, yes, experiment and feel free to like try a few different things, but like if something hits, like double down on it. When Content Reactor sold $250,000 in the first few months, and then my second course after that on AI, which was next level prompt engineering with AI, did $250,000 as well. I should have just like stopped and focused on just those two products and like made them better, made it more obvious, made it really super clear who I was as a creator, like what I was doing. So yeah, like if you're just starting out, try some stuff, but like, man, if something works, don't just move off it because you feel like, oh, I sold that and now it's over. Think, how do I make this 10 times bigger of a business? How do I reach more people? How do I make the product better? How do I make the product more valuable? Like all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, really, really good point. Can you just walk through really quickly your current revenue breakdown?
Yeah, so it's about 25% consulting, 75% courses. I do a course launch every 1 to 2 months or relaunch. And I'm kind of ironically, I'm trying to simplify that and make it like fewer things and like more of the same stuff. And so there's a lot of work going on in the background to like collapse. Like I'm taking 3 of my old courses and like recombining them into one and like releasing that as like, okay, this is it. And that adds up to about $500,000 each year.
This has been amazing, Rob. Where can people check you out online and learn more about AI and prompting?
Yeah, so you can find all my stuff at lennonlabs.com, like John Lennon, the famous Beatle, lennonlabs.com. I'm at that Rob Lennon on X, Rob Lennon on LinkedIn. I'm actually trying to grow my Substack. There's like a really terrible cold start problem with Substack where like if you have no followers, you get no impressions. So like if Substack knows Substack is a thing, come check it out. It's basically like Twitter in 2022 is what Substack Notes is like today. It's awesome.
Before we wrap, any final lesson or takeaway or challenge to the viewer to help them along their business journey?
One big takeaway is there's like a lot of hype in the AI world. And I think it's really easy to get seduced. But like you see content where it's like everyone should have a faceless YouTube channel. And like just know that like a lot of that stuff is BS. And there is a ton of opportunity. Like I live that opportunity every day. But it really does come from like solving real problems, from doing real stuff, and not just like whatever the tweet is, whatever like the post is, and following that. Like chances are if that person is selling you into a free community with a funnel to a paid product, that they're not making 5 figures on their faceless YouTube channel. They're making 5 figures on you, thinking that you can make 5 figures on your faceless YouTube channel. So like, just be cautious about that. But if you can find people who have money to spend, who have a problem that's worth spending money to solve, and you can solve that and become known for solving that, like that's the trifecta. That's the way, like if you want to make your first $1,000, like go out, find a problem that's worth spending money to solve. And ideally something that you're good at. So,